Pilgrim is a thoroughbred gelding that was sent to me to train. When he first got to the barn, I was under the impression that he would be a pretty easy horse to work with, but as I got to know him more, it became pretty apparent that this horse had a lot of issues. The first really big issue that you see here is that he will not let me pick up his feet. It wasn't anything to do with how I was asking, he just didn't want anyone to pick up his feet, which is really unusual for a thoroughbred coming off the track. They're normally pretty good about their feet. Of course there's always exceptions, but I've never seen an off-the-track thoroughbred be anywhere near as bad as Pilgrim was with his feet, and I've worked with a lot of off-the-track thoroughbreds, so this was definitely a sign for me that something is either causing this horse a lot of pain or he has some really serious behavioral issues. For the first few weeks this horse was in my barn, I only picked up his front feet. I was like, if he is this bad about his front feet, there is absolutely no way I'm gonna even get near his back feet right now because I don't trust him not to kick me. So every day for weeks, I would just go and hold this horse's front feet up, and I would just hold it up for a couple seconds and then he could have his foot back. And I just kept doing that every day, and then we slowly started to add a little more time, and then it got to where I was actually picking out his feet. And then once he was good with his front feet, we moved to the back feet, and I just kind of had the same process with those. And you guys will see the progress he makes later on in this video. So the only problem that I was told this horse had was that he would not go through water or cross ditches. Well, naturally when I hear that he doesn't want to go through water, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make him go through water. That sounded really bad. I didn't force him to go through water, but you guys will see the process of this and how much better he gets with water. So as you guys just saw, I started off walking into the water with him, and I just kept him on a circle. That way I could keep his feet in the water and he could kind of come to terms that standing in water isn't going to kill him. And then I started lunging him through the water, and he was a little hesitant about it at first. He wanted to go around the water, but he got over it really quickly. I still have a few more things I want to say about the water, but I also need to talk to you guys about what you're seeing right here. Otherwise, you guys are going to be a little confused because you're going to be like, why is this horse not moving? Well, let's talk about it. So I was told that this horse is great under saddle and that I wouldn't have an issue with him, and I was like, okay, cool. So the first time I get on him by myself because the person who told me this, I trusted what she said about her horse. And literally as I sat on this horse for the first time, he started bucking. And then I got him over that, and I tried to walk, and anytime I added my leg, he would kick out. So I'm like, oh my gosh, why am I sitting on this horse by myself with literally no one in the barn? And thankfully he didn't do anything terrible, because I could have really gotten hurt because I was super misled about what was going on with this horse, and I should have known better than to even get on the horse that I don't know by myself, but that happened. So anyways, this is actually my second ride on him because like I said, I was by myself for the first ride, so I didn't get any video of it. There was a lot going through my mind at this point. I was very worried that he was hurting somewhere. I was worried about his back. I was worried that he might have ulcers. So all of that stuff I'm thinking about throughout the ride and trying to figure out exactly what is bothering this horse. I know he doesn't like my leg on him. He's very resistant to my leg. If I even touch him with it, he stops. If I add more leg to try and make him walk, he kicks out like you guys just saw. We do tend to have more issues when we get closer to the water, but honestly, I don't think water was ever the root of the problem. And I don't want to give too much away, so I guess you guys will have to keep watching to figure out what the problem was. Okay, now back to the water situation really quick because I still have something that I want to say about it. I was told by his owner that they had tried everything they could think of to get this horse through water and that he just wouldn't do it. He didn't like water, he didn't want anything to do with it. But within 20 minutes of my working with this horse, he was going through water confidently on the ground, and within about 40 minutes, pretty confidently going through it under saddle. Now, I have no idea what they were trying to do with this horse to get him through water, so I'm not going to speak on that, but I can talk about what I did with him. I'm not going to go through the whole process because you guys literally just watched that and that would be really repetitive. But I am going to say this. I think it's very, very important to be patient with your horses because the goal is to create confident horses and not fearful horses. And I think this whole video goes to show that being patient with your horses really can go a long way. So now back to what's currently going on. Still having a lot of issues, still haven't made much progress, still not really walking. So yeah, I guess let's just wait and see what happens. At this point, I start adding a little more pressure and being a little more adamant that he needs to go forward. And I figured if it gets worse, then it's most likely pain related, and if it gets better, then it's most likely behavioral. The reason that I stayed on this horse, even after talking about being worried that he was in pain earlier, was because I had no solid proof at this point that it was actually pain related. It still very well could be that it's just a behavioral issue that needs to be worked through. The fact that he got much better after I started to add more pressure to him is a pretty good indication that this might actually just be a behavioral issue. I did, however, check his back after this ride just to make sure that it wasn't hurting him and he wasn't sore. And had the problem persisted or gotten worse, I would have told the owner that, a vet needs to see this horse so we can figure out what's bothering him because, if it wasn't getting better, then there's something hurting this horse, but that wasn't the case. At this point, I remember telling myself, okay, if he trots through this next water without an issue, then you're just gonna stop and he's gonna be done, and that's exactly what I did. For probably the first month of his training, this is how his rides were. So he would trot a couple laps, and if he was good about it, then he would be done. And once he got to be pretty good about trotting, I added some trot pulls, and if he was good about those, then he was done. Then I added a canter and just kind of built him up really slowly like that until it got to the point where he was working like a normal horse. At this point, he's starting to become much more responsive to my leg and not just kick out whenever I want him to go forward. This was actually my very first time cantering him. This is when I start jumping him a little bit. Supposedly he had jumped before, but considering he wasn't even going forward when he first got here, jumping was the furthest thing from my mind. But at this point, he's pretty responsive to leg pressure, so I thought it would be okay to start him over fences. So I hit him with the crop right here because he started to fall off my leg a little bit, and as we've previously learned about this horse, he doesn't always like to listen to my leg. So I just needed a stronger reminder that he does in fact have to listen to my leg. After I jumped him, I had Whitney get on him for a few minutes because at this point he's being really good for me, but I need to know if he's going to be good for a different rider or if he's just going to go back to his old behavior. But he was really good for her. I was so happy with him. From here on, he really just blossoms. He's moving off my leg very nicely now, which makes putting him on the bit something that can actually happen. This right here was the most rewarding day for me in this horse's training. Just to have him traveling around on the bit was a huge deal because you can't have a horse on the bit unless they're moving off your leg. And for him to actually be moving off my leg and not just trying to kick out or buck or, all the stuff he was doing in the beginning was a really, really big deal. Today is his second jump school. It's his first jump school outside, and I couldn't help myself from walking him over the Liverpool a couple times because for a horse that hates water so much and doesn't like ditches, I was like, he's definitely gonna hate this Liverpool, but it didn't bother him at all. He walked right over it. This is the one and only issue we ever had at a fence. It was his first time seeing those gray walls and he was a little freaked out by them, but he got over it right away and he jumped them, and then we never had an issue again at a fence. He's always been very brave and honest to new fences, which is great. Right here, I'm getting him ready to jump his first line. I like to jump the out before trotting into the whole line because I feel like it makes them a little more confident since they've already seen one of the jumps. This is his third jump school, and as you can see, water is no longer an issue for this horse at all. I don't know that he'll ever enjoy going through it, but he knows that he needs to go through it, and he's gotten very good about it at this point. So here we are at one of the last rides I ever had on Pilgrim. It's mind-blowing to think about the horse that I started off with and to know just how much this horse truly hated to work. It would take me 40 minutes to get this horse to trot a couple laps around the ring. I don't know what happened to this horse to make him the way that he was, but it makes me so happy to watch him in these clips right here and to see how much happier he looks. He's more comfortable and he's so much more confident. Pilgrim turned out to be a bit of a challenge that I wasn't quite expecting, but he turned out to be one of the sweetest horses I've ever worked with, and I'm really glad he got to be a part of my life, even if it was only for a few months. He's like, how do I get out?
What is this thing?
Good boy, Pilgrim. Good boy. Good boy.